Well, good morning, everybody. We're here to recognize the best of the third quarter, and to get things rolling, we're going to have our chaplain bless today's event. Chap?
Amen. Let's go to God in prayer. Heavenly Father, we do thank you for today and our awards ceremony. It's always great to recognize people who have a spirit of excellence here in our agency. We thank you for your hand of blessing and protection that rests upon not only our law enforcement agency, but all those up and down the Treasure Coast and Space and Gold Coast. Keep them safe as they watch over our community. And Lord, during this Thanksgiving season, we just want to say thank you for giving us an opportunity to be part of a great agency that's making a big impact in our community for your glory. I pray this prayer in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. Our past ceremonies, we had the recipient come up and stand and take pictures. We're doing a little different this quarter, and the reason is we felt there was a lot of attention that was distracted away from our honorees. So we've already taken the pictures, and when the name is read, the honoree is going to come up here, and we're going to focus fully on them. No distractions whatsoever. We're going to give them the attention that they deserve. And first up is Major Jerry Rothman. Major.
Good morning. The first one I have is Deputy of the Quarter, and that is Dawn Sigmund. So now we're just going to stare. Deputy Dawn Sigmund is an 18-year veteran of the Sheriff's Office and is currently assigned to the Courthouse Security Unit. Dawn's main responsibility on a daily basis is to coordinate the movement of inmates from the holding area to the courtrooms. She also coordinates readmits who are processed and sent to the corrections facility. On an average day, holding will shuffle and process upwards of 60 inmates and readmits. Dawn is very detail-oriented, accountable, and well-organized. And I'm going to tell you, you better follow her directions when you're down there. Deputy Dawn Sigmund serves as the FTO in the holding area. After reviewing the holding daily observation report for new trainees, Deputy Sigmund took it upon herself to add several items that were liability concerns that are now addressed in the new DOR. Deputy Sigmund understands that what is important and what must be known to safely operate holding and showing her leadership and concern for the jobs that must be done down there. The confidence her supervisors have in her makes her a top-tier asset. They often avert to her to make sure that the holding area is basically run in the lapse of supervision the supervisors are not down there at that time. This can be done having the confidence in Deputy Sigmund's decision-making ability and that all will be taken care of and they will be notified of any matters only when necessary. So thank you for what all you do down there. The next is a commendation for the Stars basketball team. And I know there's 3 members here. And if you would come up now, I know Deputy Mark Phillips is here. Deputy Nick Lesnick. And one of our firemen.
Here he is, yeah.
Is it Chad? Chad Krause is also here. The members of the Star basketball team were kind of asked to come in and get involved in an event that we did over the summer. We were trying something different. As many of you know in the law enforcement side, that we do generally in the summer, we put out basically a suppression team to try to calm things in the northwest area. And we decided to try something different. We decided to put on a 2-week camp. And instead of taking the camp kids away from the area, we decided to take the camp into that particular area where we have a lot of shooting activity and gang activity. And I'm going to tell you, it was phenomenal to say the least. The first week, a lot of the parents, some of the kids were very, standoffish. And once they got to know the players, see them as not just as a uniform, as an officer, they saw them as just a coach, and it was showing them some skills and everything. It was amazing how the barriers came down. And that the first week we had over 40 at least over 40. And then the second week, we had well over 50 kids that actually showed up for the camp, and it was a huge success. We had thought, considering that we're in a pretty violent area, that we would have to still have issues in those areas. As it turned out, for this 2 weeks, we had little or no basically shooting activity, gang activity. It was just quiet. And if it wasn't for these guys, taking the time out of their schedules and being allowed by corrections and law enforcement to go out and participate in this event, because it wasn't just an administrative event, it was an agency event. It really emphasized, it changed the way we look at, or being looked at out there in the community. And we just can't go out and do suppression and think that's going to cure the problem. Taking these officers and firemen and putting them in a different capacity and being seen as differently, it really brings down a lot of the walls. And we hope to do more of this, but I want to thank them for being part of this. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. First up, we're going to do the civilian of the third quarter for the Department of Detention. Mary Jajewski. Mary has worked her current assignment since June 2014. Mary has been very instrumental in purging and updating the volunteer database at the jail, organizing and maintaining the facility volunteer orientation program. She has assisted with creating, organizing, and disseminating the facility safety data sheet manuals, assisted with organizing and disseminating the facility security and safety equipment logs, created new policy manuals for the facility, and assisted accreditation greatly. All of this is outside of her current assignment. Since January of this year, she has accomplished the following. She's conducted 852 inmate disciplinary hearings. She's processed 511 injury reports. She's processed 1,636 inmate requests. She's provided 1,964 notarized documents to inmates. Did you know you did all this? No. Okay. She's answered 1,138 phone requests, and she's responded to 765 inmate visitation requests. Also, she processes our work orders, our maintenance work orders to the county. She's processed 3,096 incoming work orders that she forwards over to county maintenance, and she's closed out 2,932. As you can see, we're going to have her start washing dishes next week. There's plenty of time. Mary is a valuable member of the Sheriff's Office and is a pillar of support within the Department of Detention. And for these reasons, she's the civilian of the quarter. Congratulations.
And Mary, for the record, I'll have him do the dishes before you, okay? You're
Detention Deputy of the third quarter, Deputy Timothy Jones. The contributions made by Deputy Jones has made a significant impact on the operational and fiduciary responsibilities of the Department of Detention. In reviewing and establishing a lesson plan for mandatory in-service training, an expenditure analysis was completed to determine how to reduce the cost of training without the deterioration to the quality of the training. The first application of this theory was completed in December 2014 with the defensive tactics in service training. The revisions implemented by Deputy Jones resulted in a 70% reduction in expenditures. By incorporating the auditory, visual, and kinesthetic learning style of adults, the volume of remedial training for high liability refresher training has drastically declined. The evaluations received from the staff members reinforced and commended the professionalism and stellar training they received. The positive results achieved from this revision has been applied to our upcoming in-service training for 2016. Thank you for a job well done, Tim. What are you laughing at?
I got to apologize for the reaction.
Oh. Detention Supervisor of the third quarter, Sergeant Sheila Miller. Sergeant Miller transferred to the Detention Training Unit in 2014. Her leadership skills are exceptional. Sergeant Miller coaches those around her to succeed. She accomplishes this by encouraging her employees to continue their education and make suggestions and recommendations for the betterment of themselves as well as the agency. During the last quarter, Sergeant Miller has been involved in a multitude of different projects and events. Just to name a few, she was involved in the chili cook-off, the annual clergy luncheon, and file audits of the on-base software. During the audits of the software system, Sergeant Miller found some deficiencies in the filing of documentation and implemented a system creating a more accurate method of tracking employee training. Sergeant Miller is a proactive supervisor who always goes above and beyond. Congratulations, Sergeant Miller. Commendation Award, Deputy Jeffrey Feliciano. On October 5th, Deputy Feliciano was on his way to work when he observed the aftermath of a traffic crash involving a motorcycle on I-95. As no other first responders were on scene, Deputy Feliciano stopped to assist those involved in the crash. He checked on the status of the involved parties and made sure they were all stable. He moved all witnesses and bystanders to a safe location away from the incident as well as away from the morning rush hour traffic. Deputy Feliciano kept the scene safe, calm, secure until the police department and rescue arrived. Thank you, Jeff.
Done?
Next up is Major Dave Thompson.
Good morning. This first award is a little late because the individual receiving it decided to take a hiatus with a bad back. So he's been out for a while, but it's the 2014 Deputy of the Year, Detective Paul Taylor. Come on up, Paul.
He did share with me that he wore his yellow love shirt for this day. So.
He is bright, and as Paul will tell you, he's just happy to be here. He had a tremendous back issue that he had to deal with. But Detective Taylor's been with the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office since September of 2000. He's a field training officer and a member of the bomb team. So you know what that means. Be in front of him if he's running. In June 28th of 14, there was a lot of diesel fuel cases at the Love's truck stop here in Fort Pierce. Detective Taylor's efforts during that investigation led to the identification of over 60 similar thefts in 19 states. When Detective Taylor started working with the Love's corporate security, he obtained video from similar fuel thefts in all 19 states. They all used the same modus operandi. The suspects paid for a small amount of fuel and then somehow modified the machine at the pump to steal hundreds of gallons of fuel. Detective Taylor worked with a Texas detective to obtain an identification number of one of the suspect's trucks along with the driver's name. A month after the first fuel theft, deputies arrested a suspect for a fuel theft in progress from Love's truck stop in Fort Pierce. That case provided leads to Detective Taylor's other fuel theft cases. He was able to identify 7 different drivers using 5 trucks to steal more than 200,000 gallons of diesel fuel all over the country. Detective Taylor, thanks for your hard work and effort, and welcome back.
Great job. Do you want to present him the Love's gas card now?
Yes. The supervisor of the third quarter, Sergeant Jimmy Adams. Sergeant Adams has completed his first full year as a supervisor and of supervising the aviation and marine units. During this quarter, he completed operational outlines for the 4th of July and Labor Day holidays, which included 10 staff members patrolling the waterways and beaches, In addition, he established a heightened level of safety for all vessel occupants. Prior to departure, all vessel occupants are given a briefing on equipment, safety gear, and vessel operations. Sergeant Adams was instrumental in creating a data spreadsheet for all 3 helicopters that tracks 49 different electrical and mechanical parts that are time-tracked, meaning that a certain number of hours a part has to either come off for inspection or be replaced. Because when you don't repair your helicopter, it falls out of the sky. It's not like your car and you just pull over. This past quarter, Sergeant Adams assisted with the hiring of a new pilot. He was instrumental in processing of the applications, setting up the interviews, and assisting with the selection process for this vacancy. Sergeant Adams supervises the tactical flight officers that are volunteers and trained patrol deputies who assist our pilots with their mission. In addition to the above, Sergeant Adams is the daytime pilot. He conducts operations, flights, and day coverage. Congratulations, Sergeant Adams, and welcome to supervision.
Timmy, thanks for your leadership.
This next award actually illustrates the dangers that our deputies and officers deal with every day that often go unnoticed and often are unappreciated, particularly in today's environment with the media that occurs. This is a combat cross for Detective Chris Jaden and Detective John Brady. You two would come up. On March 27, 2015, warrants were issued by Indian River County for a Jamalis Hall regarding an attempted homicide. The warrants were issued after Hall was involved in a domestic incident with his living girlfriend. Hall came home and demanded money to buy cocaine. When the victim refused, Hall severely beat her using her hands and an iron. Hall then cut the victim's throat. Hall left the residence in the victim's vehicle. The victim was able to get help from a neighbor who called for rescue. These two fine detectives here, Detectives Chris Jaden and John Brady, began their investigation and discovered that Hall was at his mother's residence in St. Lucie County. Detectives Brady, Jaden, along with Indian River detectives, established surveillance at the residence. After several hours of surveillance, Hall was observed exiting the home and getting into the passenger seat of his sister's van. Detectives conducted a vehicle takedown as the van was attempting to back out of the driveway. The sister complied with lawful orders to exit the vehicle. Hall attempted to conceal himself inside the van and was observed lying on the floor in the van. It appeared Hall was going to cooperate at first. As detectives, including Detective Brady, got within reach of Hall, he began to violently resist all efforts to arrest him. He made the statement, "I'm not going back to prison." Hall defeated all efforts to physically control him. He rolled over onto his stomach and held his hands beneath his body. Hall then armed himself with a large fillet knife that was concealed on his person. He began slashing at Detective Brady as well as the other detectives on scene as he attempted to exit the van. It was at this time that Hall was shot by Detective Jaden. Hall immediately dropped the knife and was taken into custody. Detectives provided first aid until rescue arrived and transported him to the trauma hospital. Hall was pronounced dead at the hospital. Gentlemen, thank you for your bravery. And then we contrast, that's one. And then we contrast, that's one side that often goes unnoticed, and then the other side is how many lives that our folks save. This first life-saving award, Deputy David Dionisio. On September 12, 2015, Mr. Robert Gorman was involved in a vehicle crash inside the property of Riverside Marina. While attempting to drive his vehicle around the west side of the loading or unloading slip, the right front bumper hit a wooden pole. This caused the tires to drop off the concrete wall and overturn into the water. Mr. Gorman's vehicle began sinking in the marina. The vehicle's passenger compartment became completely submerged during this incident. Deputy Dionisio arrived and recognized Mr. Gorman was unable to open the doors or windows. Deputy Dionisio entered the water and was able to break a rear window, well, they use big words here, and extricate Mr. Gorman and swim with him back to the nearest dock. This selfless act changed the outcome of a potential tragedy. Great job, Deputy, and just another life-saving award, Deputy Steve Casserly. On September 21st, Deputy Casserly responded to a call regarding an unconscious male. Deputy Casserly made contact with the caller, who advised her husband had collapsed. Deputy Casserly saw the victim unconscious on the floor. The victim did not have a pulse and was not breathing. Deputy Casserly immediately started CPR. When rescue arrived, the victim regained a slight pulse and aspirated. At the direction of rescue, Deputy Casserly discontinued CPR. Resuscitation was turned over to rescue, and the victim was transported to the hospital for further treatment. Due to the victim's wife being upset, Deputy Casserly provided her with a ride to the hospital. Deputy Casserly was advised by rescue that his efforts were in fact successful. The victim had a pulse and was breathing again on his own. Great job, Deputy Casserly. Another life-saving award is Deputy Michael Alonge. Alonge here? All right. And Deputy Samantha Wheeler. On July 2nd, Deputy Samantha Wheeler received a flag down of an unconscious man at 7-Eleven at the Mobil Station parking lot. The man was not breathing and had no pulse. Deputy Wheeler called it in immediately and began CPR. Deputy Michael Alonge quickly arrived and assisted Deputy Wheeler with the CPR. A short time later, a pulse was detected and it grew stronger as rescue breathing was continued. When rescue arrived, the man was transported to the hospital for treatment. Later in the shift, they learned that he remarkably recovered and would be released. Evidence indicated this incident was likely a result of a possible overdose. The actions of the deputies, Samantha Wheeler and Michael Alonge, made the difference between life and death. Great job.
George Tracy is here.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I'm sure I do. I got another one on here. And life-saving award, Deputy Jason Meisinger. Deputy Tanya Wright is not here. She's out of town, but Deputy Jason Meisinger. On October 12th, Deputies Jason Meisinger and Tanya Wright were dispatched to a cardiac arrest. When they arrived, the victim's breathing was very shallow, and she was somewhat unconscious and unresponsive. The victim continued to be unresponsive, stopped breathing, and did not have a pulse. Immediately, Deputies Meisinger and Wright moved the victim from the bed to the floor, and Deputy Wright started giving rescue breaths. CPR was continued until rescue arrived. At the direction of rescue, Deputies Meisinger and Wright discontinued CPR, at which time resuscitation was taken over by the paramedics. The victim was transported to the hospital for further treatment. Upon arrival, Deputy Meisinger was advised that the resuscitation efforts were successful and that the victim had a pulse and was breathing on her own. Thank you for a job well done. Life Saving Award, Deputy Doris Tracy, and Deputy Dan LaFleur, who is at SWAT training and can't be with us today. But Deputy Doris Tracy. On August 29th, Deputies Dan LaFleur and Doris Tracy responded to an unconscious and not breathing 2-month-old child. Upon arrival, a family member was observed giving chest compressions and advised both deputies that the baby was premature and recently released from the hospital with a lung condition. The child was observed wearing an oxygen mask. Deputy Tracy took over chest compressions while Deputy LaFleur located the oxygen tank. Deputy LaFleur discovered the oxygen tank was not functioning correctly, and he began efforts to make it operational. Within a few moments, the oxygen began to flow properly through the oxygen mask, and Deputy Tracy continued chest compressions. These combined efforts resulted in the infant showing signs of life and eventually beginning to cry. What a moment that must have been. It was after these efforts that rescue arrived on scene and took over. The child was transported to the hospital for continued medical observations. Great job, Deputy Tracy. Sheriff?
Thank you. Well, what do you think? Is the new agenda the way we do it okay? Yeah? Good? Excellent. Well, those of you here can tell we have lots of heroes in the sheriff's office. And each and every day I receive letters about their actions. And today is, this is a sample of this quarter's letters that I received. And I just want to share 3 of them with you. You heard the story about Deputy Dianese saving a guy whose car went into the water. Let me read you the letter that gentleman wrote me. Dear Sheriff Mascara, I would like to take this opportunity to bring your attention to the heroic, life-saving actions taken by Deputy Dianese on September 15th of this year. His single-handed, decisive evaluation and subsequent actions saved my life. My car had gone into a canal and it was rapidly filling with water. All my car's windows and doors were locked and I could not open them. There was literally no way to open any of the car doors or windows. One of the veteran tow truck operators stated he had not seen such a complete automobile lockup in all the years of his towing business. I had no phone to call anyone or time to do so, no tools to break the glass. I literally hammered the windows with a flashlight and repeatedly and vigorously kicked the front passenger window with both heels until I could no longer lift my legs. The water was rising rapidly in my vehicle and I had no way out. I was literally 3 minutes or less from drowning in my own car. It was at this point that I heard the deputy hammering at my front passenger window. I was greatly relieved when he finally cracked the glass, thus enabling me to exit the vehicle. I swam out the passenger window with the water up to my chin. I cannot state strongly enough how grateful I am for this deputy's actions. They were quick-witted, competent, and effective actions. Quite simply, if it was not for him and his willingness to put himself in harm's way for a complete stranger's benefits, I most probably would have drowned. He saved my life. He is a credit to your office and his profession and a tried and true servant and protector of the public. He is and always will be a real-life hero. I offer these thoughts and sentiments with the highest regard and respect for Deputy Dianese. I hope they bring your office, your profession, and him the recognition, accolades, and appreciation for services most excellent, beyond the call of duty, upfront, and unabashedly heroic. So great job, Dave. This one we just received a couple days ago. It is not always to get me involved in writing a letter, but I need to express my appreciation and gratitude to one of your deputies. Recently, law enforcement has been misunderstood due to the actions of a few, but Deputy Bill Miller has restored our trust and, most importantly, a positive impact on a resident of your county. His commitment to law enforcement's best practices are exemplary. On Sunday, November 15th at 8 a.m., I was stopped by Deputy Miller for an improper turn. I am a Hispanic male from Broward County, a retired Miami-Dade County Social Service Supervisor visiting and traveling with a friend, an African-American female who currently lives on South Indian River Drive. What we experienced during this stop has given us a completely different outlook and understanding of what law enforcement should be and the side most of us never see. We were impressed with Deputy Miller's conduct while performing his duties. He was professional, respectful, and a gentleman. He exhibited clarity, confidence, and cultural sensitivity. His engagement style set a tone for a successful interaction with us. He treated us with courtesy, fairness, and we immediately felt at ease. His actions are commendable and should not go unnoticed by your agency. Please ensure that the appropriate recognition is delivered to me. She wrote the letter to me. Deputy Miller is an asset to your team and an excellent role model for law enforcement in general. Once again, I believe Deputy Miller will immensely impact our community and our society. Sincerely, Wilson Rodriguez. Great job. This one is a little bit long. It comes from a resident on North Beach, and it's about Travis Bell. She starts off, I feel compelled to let the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office know what a gem of a policeman you have in Officer Travis Bell. I did correct her and tell her he is a deputy. But last evening I had to call 911 because my husband is out of town and I was alone with just my dog, just moving here to Fort Pierce for a couple of weeks and not being familiar with the big house. I was contemplating sleeping outside for the night when I called my husband and he suggested I call 911, which I did. About 5 minutes later, Officer Travis Bell arrived, and thereafter he spent the better part of the next 2 hours attempting every single avenue in an effort to get me back into the house. What she had done is she went outside but locked herself out of the house. All by himself most of the time until much later my husband was able to locate one neighbor that we have met who was on his way home from Vero, and he also helped me bring to conclusion this scary incident. Officer Bell actually had to remove a very heavy door from its hinges, which took a long time and a lot of hard work because the hinges had a security feature on them. I can't thank you and your department enough for having the foresight to hire this incredible young man. He was not only unbelievable, inventive, and determined toward bringing an emergency to a successful conclusion, but also, more importantly, he was comforting and calmed me tremendously by his own personal calm manner and demeanor. I just wanted to make sure you knew what kind of impressive professional that you have in your midst with this young man, and hope you appreciate him as much as I do. Thank you for all you do for your citizens here in St. Lucie County. And we do know that we have heroes among us, and you do awesome things for our community. Thank you again. God bless you all, and to the award winners, congratulations.